AB 1510 allows victims of sexual assault their day in court by exempting from the current statute of limitations claims of sexual assault at student health centers that otherwise would have been barred prior to January 1st, 2020. Although legislation was passed last year that extends the statute of limitations for damages of sexual assault to 10 years, that legislation is not retroactive, leaving countless victims without recourse, including current and former USC students victimized by Dr. Tyndall. In May of 2018, the LA Times broke the story of a cover-up by USC regarding sexual misconduct of student patients by Tyndall, the sole full-time gynecologist employed by the university at its student health center. After the university's investigation, USC quietly paid Dr. Tyndall to go away and failed to disclose information about the finding of their investigation to students, the Medical Board of California, or law enforcement. Dr. Tyndall started at USC in 1989, and over the years it is estimated that over 14,000 female students were impacted by Dr. Tyndall. Failure to bring to light complaints of Dr. Tyndall's sexual assault on students allowed him to continue to assault thousands of women for years. It is vital that survivors are provided with an opportunity to have their day in court, and this bill will provide an additional year for survivors to seek justice. Here to testify on behalf of this bill is the survivor, Nicole Haynes, and Holly Boyer from the California Consumer Attorneys to answer any legal questions.
Thank you. First witness, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Reyes, you're taking the amendments?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First witness.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Nicole Haynes, and I am here to speak in support of AB 1510. During my time at USC, I served as captain of the track and field team, and I specialized in the heptathlon, which is 7 events competed over a 2-day period. I went to the Olympic trials, and in the decade after graduating, became a professional track and field athlete, and later in life, a broadcast journalism who for a time covered USC sports. I am a Trojan to the core, and that is what made my coming forward about the abuse I suffered at the hands of Dr. Tyndall so incredibly difficult. In 1995, during my junior year at USC, I went to the Student Health Center with the worst case of food poisoning that I've ever experienced. It was there that I came under the care of Dr. Tyndall, and like so many others, was put through the ordeal of a full vaginal exam for something totally unrelated to my illness. This was also my first gynecological exam, as I had never been seen by an OBGYN prior to that. Dr. Tyndall violated me. I vividly remember that day because I had never experienced that type of stomach pain before in my life. And I just wanted to figure out what was going on, get to the bottom of it, and get some treatment. So when I was asked to disrobe and put my feet up in the stirrups to get the vaginal exam, I completely complied. I just wanted to be out of this immense pain. After the exam was done, I was told, you have food poisoning, go home, and it'll pass within several hours. I was like, that was it? I went through all that just to go home? It never sat well within my spirit. It wasn't until I started reading stories about what Dr. Tyndall did last year in the news that my confusion about what happened back in 1995 became crystal clear. I immediately reached out to a dear friend of mine who's a physician and asked, is it normal to get a full vaginal exam when you get food poisoning? And he kind of chuckled and was like, no, what are you talking about? Like hundreds of my fellow Trojan sisters, I was sexually assaulted by someone who was supposed to be my trusted doctor, a doctor that USC kept employed and allowed to treat young women like me long after reports of his abuse. My mom was abused as a child, and she constantly reminded me, hey, if anybody touches you in an inappropriate way, let me know. I now have a 4-year-old, and I'm constantly telling her, hey, if anybody touches you like this, let me know. These predators can't be stopped unless they're reported, and I kind of feel robbed that I was unable to report that during my time because I trusted USC and its employees to take the best care of me. I had to come forward today, not just for me, but for my mom, and for the hundreds of other women who have sat with their shame, fear, and mistrust about the abuse they suffered by someone who was supposed to care for them. The system is not working when this type of abuse is allowed to occur for almost 30 years. The system is broken when the good nurses who reported this horrendous conduct were met with inaction, or better worse, a complete cover-up. The systemic failure is continuing now as we try to bring our case to court. The institution that allowed the abuse, USC, is claiming that archaic deadlines and statutes of limitations should be allowed to limit our rights and our voices. We will not be silenced. AB 1510 will give survivors like me, who have come forward, a chance to hold those who harmed us accountable. I urge you to support this extremely important bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate your testimony. I know how hard it is to come forward on a subject like this and in a very public place. Thank you. Next witness, please.
For nearly 30 years, Dr. George Tyndall, the only full-time gynecologist at USC's Student Healthcare Center, used his position of trust and authority to molest, abuse, and humiliate students, many of whom were teenagers seeking a gynecologist for the very first time. Tyndall would instruct students to lie naked on the exam table while he slowly inspected every part of their body, while at the same time making sexually inappropriate comments and photographing their genitalia. He would insert his ungloved fingers inside a patient under the guise of a medical exam, despite being completely unnecessary and extremely improper. While Tyndall's rampant sexual abuse is deeply disturbing, what is perhaps more disturbing is that USC knew that Tyndall had been sexually abusing students for decades and did nothing to stop it. After the abuse and cover-up was finally made public in 2018, a brave 650 female victims have come forward and initiated actions against USC in California State Court. Many of these victims, however, now face yet another obstacle, an expired statute of limitations. AB 1510 provides a narrow one-year revival provision to the statute of limitations to give these victims an opportunity to have their case heard in court. The only opposition to the bill is USC. USC argues that the bill destroys a proposed federal class action settlement reached within only a few short weeks after the abuse was disclosed. This is simply not true. AB 1510 does not revive claims where there has been a final settlement that has been reached. USC argues that AB 1510 deprives women of the choice to resolve their claims in a manner that they feel appropriate, but the exact opposite is true. AB 1510 provides women the choice of whether to seek redress through the class action settlement or pursue an individual claim in state court. These victims should not be handcuffed to a settlement that they may believe is unjust. It is only with the passage of AB 1510 that these victims have a meaningful choice.